I will often ask the question, put your hand up if you know what grooming is, or you can tell me. And, I perhaps get one or two kids that can articulate it properly, and most can't.
Hi, I'm Dr Jodi Richardson, and this is Well, Hello Anxiety. In a world that often moves too fast, we're here to pause, breathe, and understand anxiety together. Each episode will explore practical strategies, share honest conversations, and uncover the science behind anxiety and well-being, all while creating a space where it's okay to not be okay. Let's continue this journey together. Welcome back to part 2 of my conversation with Susan McLean, who is a cyber safety expert. She travels the world lending her expertise to organisations like Google and Roblox and Snapchat, Meta. She speaks to students all around the world, as well as parents and teachers around cyber safety. And last week's episode, we talked about some really important, heavy topics that are that we have to talk about. We have to know about these things as parents. It's frightening what can happen in the online world, and Susan's here to help us to understand more about what the potential harms are, and also how to help keep our kids much safer. Susan, the last part of our conversation last week was talking about where predators are and how little children and teens often understand about what a tricky person or a predator is going to look like in the online space, and how they act and how they will befriend you and the way that they will treat you to make you feel like you are safe with them, corresponding with them. And in the book, I love that you wrote about the 4 F's that can help parents kind of recognise and also then teach their kids how to kind of see that for what it is when it starts to happen. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so the 4 F's are dot points, if you like, in the grooming process. And I think one of the things that I see routinely is that young people don't know what grooming is. They don't know what the process is. They don't know what it looks like. Now, they've realized they're in a mess after they may have been sexually assaulted. But for me, I want them to know what the process looks like. So hopefully, even if they begin to be groomed, it's identified, it's stopped, and then we don't move on to that contact offending part or live streaming of sex acts on a webcam, for example. So the 4 F's are flattery, favouritism, forbidden fruit, and fear. So flattery is paying lots of compliments. Kids think pedophiles and predators are mean and nasty, which of course deep down they are, but they don't share that. They're not going to say mean things about you. They're not going to send you a message and go, oh, hi, I saw your picture. You're fat and ugly, by the way. Be my friend. Because no one's going to friend anyone that calls them fat and ugly. So there's lots and lots of paying compliments. This person is very charismatic. They're very nice. They don't draw attention to themselves. They're sort of, everyone's friend. But the main victim then starts to get singled out. So favoritism. So special things just for them, you can stay back and do this. You can help me with this. You can be my special buddy in a game and all of that. Then we have forbidden fruit, and that's gifts. So that's giving them special treats, if you like. And that's not going to be something that's concrete. Like, these offenders are not going to send the Amazon delivery man to your house with a bike. Because you're going to say to your child, where did that bike come from? And your child will go, oh, it's my new online friend. So that's not going to happen. So what they use now is digital money. So things that parents can't see, but is very, very enticing for children. So Robux, iTunes vouchers, Xbox vouchers, mobile phone credit, digital gift cards. Yeah. And then the last one is the fear and the threats. And what they're going to be doing is, even if by this point your child thinks something smells here, this is not right, and starts to try to pull away, even if nothing sexual has occurred, the threats can be things like, do you want your parent to know you've taken money from me? Do you want your parents to know you're talking to a stranger on the internet? You're going to get into so much trouble. So they have all these little ways of keeping the child hooked. And grooming is a process. It goes over a period of time. It can be super quick, which unfortunately for parents means that the ability for you to interrupt this is very, very remote.
Mm.
I have seen from go to woe 3 to 5 days.
Wow.
But some work that I've been doing with two forensic doctors in Melbourne, Joe Tully and Janine Rouse, they've got about 9 years of some stats and research around online grooming that then results in contact child sexual offending. And they have found that most of the time frame was over 2 weeks. So,
Okay.
first contact online, hey, here I am, let's chat, to let's meet at the park because you are my new best friend, was greater than 2 weeks. So, what I'm saying to parents, and what I've said in my book is, I want you to be regularly checking who your child is talking to, their chat logs, their message logs. That is your job. That is not invading their privacy. Because as an adult, if we know that in general, in most of the cases, it's longer than 2 weeks, you have a chance to interrupt this.
Yeah.
Because you as an adult will identify weird, strange, slimy, not right, over familiar, way before any alarm bell in your child will ring.
Yeah.
So, it's be an active participant in your child's online world. That is your job, the same as you should be an active participant in your child's offline world, remembering they don't see a difference. But I need you to be there both places because it's silence and it's the fear that allows these people to thrive.
It really is. It really is. And having, like you say, it's got to be just a part of the conversation, not a one and done, not a, oh, we've got to have a special chat about this. But it is hard, isn't it, for some parents to kind of know, and I know you deliver parent seminars and you've got your book which supports parents and walks them through, because, like we've had conversations, last week and this week talking about sexting and nudes and that child predators and grooming and, these are pedophiles and so many of them are they're difficult things to talk about. They're not easy for some parents to kind of like, even talking about the birds and the bees with kids is
Yeah,
hard
no,
for
that
parents, isn't it?
yeah. No parent wants to ever think that their beautiful young child is going to, want to know about sex.
Yeah,
But
that's
that's the
right.
reality. They will, and you know what? It needs to come from you,
Yeah,
not from the internet.
yeah.
Or their friends. It needs to come from you. So yeah, tricky and awkward conversations. But I think that, and in my book, there's a whole lot of discussion starters and where to have these conversations with really little people right through to teenagers. But when I talk to children in primary school around these sorts of things, before I get into some, particular topics, we start a conversation around photos. We start a conversation about what do we wear when we're in public? What do we wear when we're in the shower? Is it okay to be naked in public? What would happen? What do you wear to your friend's birthday party? And I separate photos into two categories, yes photos and no photos. So a yes photo is a photo you could take in public, and a no photo is a photo you could not take in public. So that would be you are naked, topless for a girl, or in your underwear. And by having these really gentle, simple, easy to understand conversations that are not scary, that then links them to immediately sexy snaps that they might want to send a boyfriend and girlfriend, sexy snaps that have been sent to them. It covers off on a friend that shows them pornography or sends them a pornographic link. It covers off on pedophiles who may wish to get these photos from your child. Because if they grow up knowing that, there's certain photos that they should not be taking and sharing, well, it covers everything without having to be super specific.
Yeah.
Now, once your child is in high school, that's a little bit different. We get more specific. I talk about pornography. I talk about, grooming and child sexual abuse in a very different way. But it's still the same basis, is that if they don't know what it is, they can't identify when it's happening to them. And that's what we have to be working on.
Mm.
And, I will often ask the question, put your hand up if you know what grooming is, or you can tell me. And, I perhaps get one or two kids that can articulate it properly, and most can't. So we do have to have these conversations. Another good way to start them is if you, as the adult, have read an article, seen a news clip about this, break it down into language they can understand. Hey, I heard this on the news today. Have you heard about it? Do your friends talk about it? My children are now adults. They were teenagers once, and everything you said went in one ear and out the other. And you had to hope that with consistency,
Yeah.
something stuck, all
Yeah.
right? And then the little bit that stuck meant that the next time you had the conversation, a bit more stuck to it.
Yeah.
And then the next conversation, a little bit more stuck to it. But that's what we've got to keep. We've got to be consistent and persistent.
Consistent and persistent. I love that. And know that it might make you feel anxious, it might make you feel uncomfortable, but that is not a good reason to not do it, because
No,
you don't want to
no, no,
be
no.
like you wrote in the book. That's one of the things I highlighted. You do not want to be a parent with regrets, because the
Yeah.
stakes are high.
And you will never forgive yourself if there was something that you should have done that you didn't do.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, there are so many really sad examples of parents and schools who have done 100% everything they could have done and something has happened.
Yeah.
But that is an unfortunate fact of life. That sometimes, no matter how hard you try and no matter what you do, the bad people are going to win. But the more you do, the less likely that is to happen. And I know with my own children, they were all contacted by pedophiles when they were growing up. Like I know that. They
Mm,
were never groomed because they never engaged. Like, hey, mum, random person's trying to talk to me. And then we'd report and block together.
yeah.
So, they're out there. They don't really care. They're not necessarily looking for your child specifically. They're putting the bait out. It's like you sit on the pier with your fishing line, you put the bait in the water. You don't care what fish comes along. You hope it's a big one, but really, who cares? A fish is a fish. And that's how these offenders work as well. It's
Yeah.
very much opportunistic offending.
Yes. And some of the platforms like Roblox, for example, are just a minefield for kids, aren't they? And if you're a parent who's seen Roblox, it just looks like a little cartoony kind of game where you walk around and you meet people and you do challenges and things. But let's talk about Roblox for a minute. It's pretty frightening.
It is. And I think, I don't want to focus entirely on one platform because then
Yeah.
people will go, oh, I'll ban Roblox, but I'll let them play something else, which will be
Fair
equally
enough.
as
Good.
bad.
Yeah. Good point.
But when we look at this sort of stuff and you look at headlines that say that there's been X number of this, that, and the other, please remember that a lot of that is basic maths.
Mm,
If there are more people on any platform, there are going to be more good and more bad,
yeah.
right? That's how it's going to be. So it doesn't mean that big numbers actually mean the worst platform.
Yeah.
Because if there are more people playing Roblox and playing another insignificant game, then of course there's going to be more pedophiles on Roblox. That's just the general maths. But I think what a lot of parents don't understand is what Roblox is. Roblox isn't a game. Like your child doesn't play Roblox singular.
Mm,
Roblox is a gaming platform. And on that platform are up to 40 million games. So there are games there that if you set up the parenting controls, you pair a parent account to your child, you turn chat off, you do everything asked of you, by and large, your child will be fine because the content will be fine. They're not engaging with random people and you are controlling the experience. But it's when you don't do that that things go wrong. And for every child that has a parent with that level of control, are probably 1,000 that don't. So that's
mm,
why the pedophiles like it. Roblox have made some improvements of late. Are they working? Well, that's up for debate because the e-safety commissioner is now doing a little bit of a test on the fact that Roblox last year said we've brought in, I think it was 9 or 10 new safety features. So the e-safety commissioner's office is actually looking to see whether these safety features are actually working.
okay.
I think we need to be mindful not to bag all technology, particularly if they do make an improvement, because if a parent doesn't understand what that improvement is, then that's not helpful.
Yeah.
They need to know what it was so they can check it out themselves and, make an assessment on whether they think that this is the right place for their child to be. But with Roblox, they do a face scan now and they sort of estimate the age of your child. And then essentially, if you're going to allow chat, they can only chat with people within 2 years of the age of your child. Now, okay, that's pretty okay, except if I'm a pedophile wanting to set up an account on Roblox, I'm going to face scan my nephew or someone,
Yeah.
to make sure that I'm younger. So, it's not a guarantee. And what I like to say is there's nothing that's safe on the internet, there's only safer. So safer than it used to be, safer than yesterday, things like that. But we can't get 100% safety. One of the other tricky things with, and this is feedback that I get, and I have fed back to Roblox, is that the ratings of the games are not easy to understand on Roblox. So, for example, in Australia, most people understand G, PG, M, MA, and R, and X. They're our ratings. And, most parents would have an understanding of what would be in a game or a video with those ratings, because that's what we've all grown up with.
Yeah.
So the ratings on Roblox are things like mild and moderate. Well, mild and moderate what?
Yeah.
And for example, there's games there that have graphic sex in them, or you go in shoot up a classroom that are rated mild.
Oh, goodness.
Now that wouldn't be mild in my description of mild.
No.
So it is just this incessant ongoing battle. What Roblox have said to me in a meeting I had last week is that they are looking at now changing the game ratings in Australia to be G, P, G, M, M, A, and R.
Right.
Now, again, as any parent knows, there's M and there's M, and there's M movies, perhaps like Harry Potter, which are not too bad, but there's other M movies that perhaps you wouldn't want your young teen to watch. So there's still going to be the degree within them, but I think that shift will be positive because it will make it a little bit easier for parents to have an understanding of what the content might be and whether or not it's going to be suitable for their child.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for the work that you do. And you're on the front line, aren't you? In that you're speaking to the kids who are using these platforms and the parents who are parenting these kids who are using these platforms and the teachers.
And it's tough.
Yeah,
and it's tough.
It is. It really is. And one of the other things, it's been interesting because I've got two teenagers who've both got part-time jobs, and it's interesting because my daughter really doesn't, actually really neither of them, they will have a digital footprint, but I delayed and delayed and delayed long enough for that urge to want to put yourself online. And then all of a sudden you don't want to put yourself online because you're old enough to realise that you can be really judged. And so that worked well for us. So there's not a lot, but we did talk a lot about, as an employer, like if I was employing someone, one of the things that I would absolutely
the first thing you're going to do is go and check out what... No, that you are aging yourself now.
Oh my gosh, I'd be ChatGPT.
Do not Google anyone. We ask ChatGPT.
We do. You're right.
I was at a school in North Queensland 2 weeks ago, and the principal gave an example after I'd spoken to the staff where he was advertising for a teacher. This male applied for the job. His CV read amazing. The references were excellent. He was on the path to be shortlisted for this job, and the principal looked him up, and his first profile picture was him standing there stark naked with a fish in front of his genitals.
Oh my gosh, what a fool.
So he was binned immediately, as you would be.
Absolutely.
So you need to check what's out there linked to your child.
Yep.
One of the mistakes people make, and this is adults as well as kids, is, it's fine. I don't do dumb stuff. I don't need to worry. And that's great. However, I will make the following statement of fact. You might not do dumb stuff, but if you use social media, you'll have at least one dumb friend. And if you get caught up in what they are doing because you're there with them, you are tagged or mentioned, you're going to go down in the sinking ship.
Yes.
So checking is important.
Yeah.
Checking is very important.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much. And this is the hard work of parenting, isn't it? It just a couple of days ago, I was chatting with a friend who is, dealing with some pretty significant things, and we were just talking about how to be a good parent, you've got to do the hard work, which is take the time. You've got to do the checks. You've got to have the conversations. You've got to be connected, connect your devices, be aware of what your controls are, and keep the conversations going.
It's not optional.
It's not.
It's hard, but it's not optional. Yeah. And, I think it's important that parents support each other, that they support the school, there is strength in numbers, and all of those things. But, it's too hard, or I don't understand tech or anything like that. Those statements belong 20 years ago.
Yeah.
They can't be part of parenting today. Unfortunately, it is what it is. Delay is the way. Like, it's not about giving, a 2-year-old an iPhone and go have fun. But we have to understand that technology is here to stay. There are enormous benefits of having tech in our lives. But like anything, when the motor car was first invented, it was amazing, but there was risk with it because didn't have any seat belts and it really wasn't safe and there are no airbags. We didn't ban it and say, oh, okay, we'll go back to a horse and cart, but we made it safer. And I think that's what we need to be focusing on, is to make the user as safe as possible, the platforms as safe as possible, and empowering parents to parent, because it is the most important and the best job in the world. But by God, it's tough.
Oh, you're so right. It really, really is. It really is. And a question popped to mind before, because our son will be 18 in May, and I didn't ask the question, but I just, just for the sake of this part of the conversation, I sort of thought, when can you stop worrying? I mean, you can never stop worrying about your kids, but I kind of look at him, and we've had lots of these conversations over the years, and I sort of feel like, I'm worrying less about him because he's got more maturity. He's got, more understanding, more awareness. And like you said earlier about those alarm bells, that's our intuition. That's our gut. That's our anxiety that is telling us.
It grows and develops as they grow and develop.
Yeah.
And it does come to the point where, you've put all of that hard work in. And you have to hope for the best, because there's nothing else you can do when they become an adult.
Yeah.
But as best predictor of future choices is past choices. So, once they're on the path to making those good choices and they're doing it consistently and surrounded by, a core group of good friends, by and large, they're going to be okay. But we've got to get them to that point. And never before have there been so many, or potentially so many, outside influences on our children. You can't really corral your children the way that perhaps I could have been corralled when I was growing up pre the internet. My parents could keep me away from the bad part of town, the bad people in town. I only hung out with good people, so you could do that. But you add in what kids see online, what they're exposed to. And I'll say this, not in your house, but in their friend's house. And one of the slides that I have up now in my parent talks is, your child is only as safe as their friends with the weakest digital rules.
Yeah. That is frightening, because we all parent so differently.
You can have different parenting styles, but this is a safety issue.
Yes.
There's some things that need to be consistent, should be consistent. There is no excuse for them not to be consistent. And anything that has a child safety focus is the not negotiable.
Yeah.
We should all be singing from the same page of the book.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've written the book, so thank you.
I've written the book. There it is.
One last question before we finish. It's so interesting. Like, reading your book, there was one other thing that's really there's so much stood out for me, but not long ago, I was on the phone with a teacher, a client of mine, somebody who I've done a lot of speaking at this school, speaking to their senior students and their parents about anxiety. And we were on the phone recently, and we got to talking about cyber safety for some reason. And she had been surveying the senior students, and it might have even been the middle school students. It doesn't really matter. But she had asked the question of the group, hands up if you think it is okay for your romantic partner to
the tracking,
know where you are all the time, to track you.
Tracking.
And she said 50% of them put their hand up. I know in your stats, in your, looking at the research, obviously that was just a small cohort, it's 1 in 5. And it's just getting so normalised in our families. Yeah. We have life.
It's in all my talks now. It's in all my secondary talks.
Yes, tell us.
About the tracking. And, there's a couple of parts to this. And, if you're a parent of children, I want you to have Find My Phone on, and that is absolutely being a good parent. To have an understanding of where your child is at any time. There are stalker parents that really do ridiculous amounts of stalking, and I don't believe that is really a good way to develop a relationship between your child and you, is if you are stalking them versus making sure that they're safe. And it's that, not buying a particular product to do it, it's just using what's in the devices, etc. But the romantic partner thing is doing my head in. And again, as you said, it's normalized, it's considered acceptable. the girls are fed a line that it's how we're boyfriend and girlfriend, whatever we are. And this is what you do when you love someone. And this is me showing you that I love you. And of course it's not. And it is the first step in coercive control, which we know is one of the most common forms of domestic and family violence. And we know that, it's bad enough with the, hey, I need you to track me, and oh, okay, you can track me as well, vice versa. But we're seeing, I can't think of a recent case of domestic violence that I've had reported to me or I know about or I've read about where there hasn't been some sort of tracking involved. I've seen partners insert, the AirTag into a soft toy that goes home with the child, with the other partner.
Wow.
I've seen AirTags secreted in the victims' cars. I've seen malware downloaded onto their devices so that they can track them, they can get access to their social media accounts, etc., etc. And it all starts with what I'm seeing in high schools around that, the tracking. And doesn't matter where I speak, same slides for kids,
Yeah.
other than laws. And I spoke about it here in Hong Kong that, a sign that someone loves you is not that they want to track you. That is not a sign of someone loving you. That is someone controlling you.
Yeah.
And that is a huge red flag. But it is that normalization. And I don't know where the normalization has come from the internet. Of course it has. I don't know where in particular. I think it comes from the manosphere type content, the Andrew Tate type misogynistic content, where women are seen as possessions to be owned.
Yeah.
But it's scary. And I think that, I spoke at an International Women's Day assembly here in Hong Kong as the guest speaker in one of the schools. And one of the things I talked about was the fact that, if people really do love you, they don't harm you, hurt you, abuse you, control you. And that's not a normal thing to do.
That is such a clear message, and it's a really it's a really nice place to finish. You've shared so much. I feel like last week's episode and this week's episode, we've really been able to really get to some of the nuts and bolts of some of the really big, frightening challenges that we need to be aware of, and that we need to be having these conversations in our homes with our families. Susan, it's so lovely to reconnect because we spent a lot of time together, didn't we? We were on the Positive Schools Conference. So your book, Growing Up Digital, it's congratulations. It's a mammoth effort writing a book, and it's exciting, isn't it, when you see it in airports and you're getting to talk about it. But thank you so much, because it's such a minefield. And it's hard to know who to trust when it comes to getting the information that, especially here in Australia, the information that is relevant to our Australian landscape. Although, as you're seeing, it's a landscape that's pretty common internationally as well. But your book is available on your website.
And Amazon and Booktopia online.
Fantastic. Now, look, it's something that you will appreciate having in your parenting library. And if you're anything like me, out comes the highlighter. And I used to, I still do find it, it's a little bit of resistance when it comes to writing in a book or writing the margins and things, because I am from that era where you grew up and library books are sacred. And of course that books are very special. But yes, go ahead and make your notes, parents, and you'll know where
I've had some people send me photos of my book, and I don't know how they can fit another tab marker in it. Like, it's just a rainbow of tab markers, but that means it's useful. So that makes me happy.
Yeah, it is. And just to give listeners an idea, that in terms of the chapters, we've covered only so much in these two episodes, but you do talk about the risk about digital footprints, cyberbullying, nudes and selfies, sextortion, hurtcore, which was a new term for me. And I do love that, aside from all of the brilliant content, you've got a glossary, an appendix of internet slang. And I tell you what, I had a bit of a chuckle at some of them, but golly gosh, there's a really good selection of acronyms and internet slang so that you can understand a bit more of the lingo, because the lingo
you can pick up your child's device and understand perhaps what they're saying.
Yes.
And if it's harmless and it's funny, that's great. But if it's a little bit more sinister, you're going to have an understanding of it as well, because we know that predators in particular will use certain slang terms. They'll send certain emojis. So again, the more you know, the better you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Susan, thank you so much for your time. All the best for your travels home to Australia. And yeah, very, very grateful to you for all that you've shared with us. So thank you.
That's my pleasure. Thanks, Jodi.
Thank you for sharing this time with me on, well, hello, anxiety. Remember, understanding anxiety is the first step to managing it. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. Take things one moment at a time. Focus on what you can control and know that you are not alone on this journey. If you found value in today's episode, please share it with someone who might need to hear it too. I'm Dr Jodi Richardson, and I'll meet you right back here next week.